Coming to chapter 2 of Hard Thing About Hard Things. Chapter 2 is the I Will Survive. Did you think I would crumble? Did you think I would lay down and die? Oh no, no. I will survive. This is the statement given by the Gloria Gaynor. Did you think I am lay down? Did you think I would crumble? No. Did you think I will die? Very bad. You thought very wrong. I will survive and I will come out of it. Coming after the success of Netscape, Mark knew all the top venture capitalists in the Silicon Valley, so we needed no introduction. Unfortunately for us, Kleiner Perkins, the firm that backed Netscape, had already funded a potentially competitive company. We spoke to all other top tier firms and decided to go with Andy Ratcliffe of Benchmark Capital. If I had to describe Andy with one word, it would be a gentleman, smart, refined, and gracious. Gentlewood, smart, refined, gracious. Andy was a brilliant abstract thinker who could encapsulate complex strategy into the pitchy sentences with ease. Benchmark would invest 15 millions at a pre-money valuation. The value of the company before cash goes into the company treasury. Means 50 million at pre-money valuation of 45 million. And pre-money valuation means the value of the company before cash going into the company treasury. So pre-money valuation is the 45. The 50 they will invest. Benchmark would invest 15 million. Okay. So then Andy Ratcliffe from the Benchmark Capital, and Benchmark going to invest the 15 million. In the addition, Mark would invest 6 million, bringing the total value of the company including its cash to 66 million. So 45 million plus 15 million, 60 million plus 6 million, 66 million. And would serve as our full-time chairman of the board. Tim Hoves would be our chief technology officer. I would be the CEO. LoudCloud was the 2-month-old. The valuation and the size of funding were the sign of the times and created imperative to get big and capture the market before similarly well-funded competitor could. And Andy Ratcliffe, the valuation and the size of the funding were sign of the times and created an imperative to get a big and capture the market before similarly funded competitors could. Andy said to me, Ben, think about how you might run the business if capital were free. Think how would you run the business when the capital were the free? Means you are free to run the business. Open your mind and run your business. Open your mind. You're free to run the business. Think of you have a capital free situation and you are running the business. 2 months later, we would raise an additional 45 million from the Morgan Stanley in debt with no convents and no payments for 3 years. So Andy's questions was more reality based than you might think. Nonetheless, what would you do if capital were free? It's a dangerous question to ask an entrepreneur. It's kind of asking a fat person, what would you do if ice cream had exact same nutritional value as broccoli? He is going to eat a lot of ice creams. Means a fat man, he is actually the habitual to eat the ice creams, and that is why he went to fat situation. And if he eat the fibrous things, then definitely he is not going to fat, he is going to lean. And if the ice cream has the same nutritious value as of the broccoli, and you are asking about, you are free to eat as much ice cream you can eat, what would he do? Okay. The thinking, this question lead to can be extremely dangerous. Naturally, I took the advice and ran with it. We quickly built out our cloud infrastructure and began staging up customers at a rapid rate. Within the 7 months of founding, we had already booked 10 million in the contracts. Loud Cloud was taking off, but we were in the race against time and the competition. Means if you are ahead of the everything, ahead of the every competition, then what anyone can think of? They will think that I am the number one and I don't have to do anything new. But you are always racing against the time. The time is passing and you must race with the time. So, as they already booked 10 billion in the contracts, Loud Cloud was taking off, but we were in the race against time and in the competition. The mean hiring the best people and fielding the broadcast cloud service, the more, and that meant spending money, lots of it. Our ninth hire was a recruiter, and we had a human resource person. Recruiter, and we had a human resource person when we had dozens of employees. We were hiring 30 employees at a month and snagging many of the valley's smartest people. One of our new recruits had quit the job to AOL to spend 2 months mountain climbing, but instead of joining us, another forfeited millions to join Loud Cloud when he resigned from the other company on the day of its IPO. We had hiring 30 employees at a month, snagging many of the valley's smartest people. One of our new recruits had quit his job at OL to spend 2 months mountain climbing, but instead of joining us, another forfeited millions to join Loud Cloud when he resigned from another company on the day of its IPO. 6 months in, we had nearly 200 employees. Silicon Valley was on fire, and Loud Cloud was built with a wide cover story. The Max Anderson's second coming, and traded our first office where you would blow circuit if you ran a microwave and coffee maker at the same time. And they have booked the office at the location where if you run the coffee and the coffee machine and the coffee maker and the whatever microwave, it will blow a circuit. For 15,000 square feet warehouse in the Sunnyvale, which was too small for us by the time we moved in. We spent 5 million to move into new 3-story stucco building with jade colored tiles we called the Taj, as in the Taj Mahal. It was also too small to keep pace with our hiring frenzy, and people were sitting in the hallway. We rented a third parking lot down the street and run shuttle vans to the office. The neighbor hated us. The kitchen was stocked like Casto, and when we fired the snack contractor for making our fridge look like the one of the Philip Roth Goodbyes Columbus, he asked for equity. This was a time. The kitchen was stocked like a Costco, and when we fired the snack contractor for making our fridge look like the one of Philip Roth's Goodbye Columbus, he asked for equity. This was the time. In the next quarter, we booked 27 million worth of new contracts, and we were less than 9 months old. This seemed like we are building the greatest business of all time. They are just 9 months and they have done so many things. It is unbelievable. But it happened in the 25 years ago, quarter a century ago. Then came the great dot-com crash. The Nasdaq peaked at 5,048.62 on March 10, 2000, more than double its value from the year before. Means the year before the value was, I think, almost 2,300, that much, because it has at the March of the 10, 2000, it became the 5,048.62 Nasdaq, means it became more than double at the year before, and then fall by 10% 10 days later. The Barron's cover story titled Birmingham predicted what was come. By April, after the government declared Microsoft monopoly, the index plummeted even further. Startups lost massive value, investors lost massive wealth, and the dot-coms once heralded as the harbinger of the new economy went out of the business almost overnight and become known as the dot bombs. The Nasdaq eventually fell below 1200 points and below 1200 and 80% drop from its peak. We thought our business might have been the fastest growing all the time at that point. That was the good news. The bad news was that we needed to raise even more money in this disastrous climate. Nearly all of the 66 million in equity and debt we had raised uh, had already been deployed in our quest to build the number one cloud service to support our new fast growing set of customers. The dot-com crash had spooked investors and raised money wasn't going to be easy, especially since most of our customers were dot-com startups. This became quite clear when we pitched the deal to the Japanese firm SoftBank Capital. My friend and Loud Cloud board member Bill Campbell know SoftBank people and and offered to get some back channel information following the pitch. When my assistant told me that Bill was on the line, I quickly answered the phone. I was eager to hear where we stood. I asked Bill, what did they say? Bill replied in his raspy, coarse voice, Ben, well, honestly, they thought you were smoking crack. With nearly 300 employees and every little crash left, I felt like I was going to die. It was the first time I would felt that way as a CEO of Loud Cloud, but not nearly the last. During this time, I learned the most important rule of raising money privately. Look for the market of one. You only need one investor to say yes, and it's best to ignore the other 30 who say no. We eventually found investors for a series C round, meaning our third round of funding at an amazing 700 million pre-money valuation and raised 120 millions. The sales forecast for the quarter came in at 100 million. The sales forecast for the quarter came in at 100 million, and things seemed like they might be okay. I felt confident and our sales forecast would hold. I've given the previous forecast and underestimated the actual performance, and perhaps I speculated we could seamlessly migrate our customers base away from dot-com bombs and more stable traditional customers such as the Nike, our largest customer at the time. And then wheels came off. We finished the third quarter of 2000s with the 37 million in the booking, not the 100 million that we had forecast. The dot-com implosion turned out to be a far more catastrophic than we had predicted. Euphoria and terror. I needed to raise money yet again. Only this time the environment was even worse. In the fourth quarter of the 2000, I met every possible funding source, including the Prince Al Walid bin Talal of Saudi Arabia. But nobody was willing to invest money in any valuation. We would gone from being hottest startup in the Silicon Valley to the unfundable in the 6 months. With 477 employees and a business that resembled a ticking time bomb, I searched for answers, thinking about what might happen if we ran completely out of money, laying off all the employees that I would be so carefully selected and hired, losing all my investors' money, jeopardizing all the customers who trusted us with their businesses, made it difficult to concentrate on the possibilities. Mac Anderson's attempted to cheer me up with her not so funny at the time joke. Mac Anderson's actually cheered me up, not at the time, not so funny at the time joke. Mark, Do you know the best thing about startup? Well, what? Mark Anderson told that you only ever experience two emotions, euphoria and terror. That's very good thing. He told that. You know what is the feeling of if you feel what is the startup? Startup is the only two things: the euphoria and the terror. And I find that the lack of sleep enhances the both, the euphoria and the terror both. With the clock ticking, one unattractive, intriguing option emerged. We could go public in an oddity of the time. The private funding market shut down for the companies with our profile, but the window on the public market remained just slightly open. This may sound like a crazy anomaly, and it was, but a private fund had become completely cynical while the public markets were only 80% of the way there. With no other option available, I needed to purpose the to board that we go public. In order to prepare, I made a list of the pros and cons of an IPO. I knew that Bill Campbell would be the critical person I would need to persuade only way or another. Bill was the only one of our board members who had been a public company CEO. He knew the pros and cons better than anyone else. More important, everybody always seemed to defer to Bill in these kind of tricky situations because Bill had a special quality about him. At the time, Bill was in his 60s and with gray hair and gruff voice, and yet he had the energy of the 20-year-old. Means you're thinking about the fact that Bill in the 2000s of the time he was in the 60s. Bill was in the 60s, 50s and 60s, but still grey hair and a gruff voice, yet had energy of a 20-year-old. 20-year-old, not 24, 25 where I am. 20-year-old. Like when the energy same as when I started to prepare for the NEET examination. I used to sit for the 12 hours straight forward in the library and studied so hard. He began his career as a college football coach and did not enter the business world until he was 40. Despite the late start, Bill eventually became the chairman and CEO of Intuit. Following that, he became a legend in a high coach, mentoring the CEO such as Steve Jobs, Apple, Jeff Bezos of the Amazon, and the Eric Schmidt of the Google. Bill is extremely smart, super charismatic, and elite operationally. But the Kyoto key to his success goes beyond these attributes. In any situation, where it's the board of Apple, where he served for over a decade, the Columbia University Board of Trustees, where he chairman, and the girls football team that he coached, Bill is inevitably everybody's favorite person. People offer many complex reasons why Bill rates so high. In my experience, it's pretty simple. No matter who you are, you need two kind of friends in your life. The first kind is one you can tell when something good happens, and you need someone who will be excited for you, not fake excitement, willing envy, but a real excitement. You need someone who will actually be more excited for you than he would be if it had happened to him. Oh my god, this kind of friend. The second kind of friend is somebody you can call when things go horribly wrong, when your life is on the line and you only have no phone calls. Who is it going to be? Bill Campbell is both of those friends. I presented my thinking as follows. We have not been able to find any investor in the private market. Our choices are to either keep working on private funding to start preparing to or start preparing to go public. Either we should have to have private funding or go for the public. While our prospect for raising money privately seems quite difficult, going public has a larger number of issues. Our sale processes are not robust and it's difficult to forecast any environment. We are not in any environment, we are in a rapidly declining environment and it's not clear where the bottom is. Our customers are going bankrupt and at an alarming and unpredictable rate. We are losing money and we are losing money and will be losing money for quite some time. We are not operationally sound. We are not operationally sound. In general, we are not ready to be public. The board listened carefully. The expressions showed deep concern with the issue. I would raise the awkward. I would raise and awkwardly long silence ensued. I expected Bill broke the dead air. Ben, it's not the money. I felt a strange sense of relief. Maybe we didn't have to go public. Maybe I would overestimated our cash problem. Perhaps there was another way. The bill spoke again. It's the fucking money. Okay, I guess we are going public. In addition to the issue I had outlined for the board, our business was complex and hard for investor to understand. We typically sign customer to 2 years contract and then recognize the revenue monthly. This model is now common, and it Bill spoke again. It's the fucking money. Okay, I guess we are going public. In addition to the issue I had outlined for the board, our businesses was complex and hard for investor to understand. We typically sign customer to 2 year contracts and then recognize the revenue monthly. This model is now common, but it was quite unusual then. Given the fast growing in our bookings, revenue lagged behind new bookings by quite a bit. As a result, our S1, our registered with SEC stated that we had 1.94 billion in trailing 6 month revenue and we forecast 75 million for the following year. An incredibly steep revenue ramp since earnings are driven by the revenue and not bookings, and we had gigantic losses. In addition, the stock option rules at the time made it seems like our losses were about 4 times as large as they actually were. The factors led to extremely negative press heading into the IPO. A scathing story in Red Herring, for instance, noted that our list of customers was quite thin and that we would too reliant on .coms. It quoted a Yankee Group analyst posting that we had lost something like $1 million per employee over last 12 months, and conjectured that way we did it was by having a bonfire on the parking lot and getting everyone busy burning a dollar bill. Business Week took us apart, and an article that declared us the IPO from hell. A Wall Street Journal cover piece quoted a money manager reactions to our offering as wow, they were desperate. One financier who actually invested in the offering called it the best option among a particularly ugly set of options. Despite the horrifying press, we prepared to hit the road. Benchmarking ourselves against the comparable companies, we settled on the price of the offering at the $10 per share after an upcoming revenue split which would value company at just under 700 million, less than a valuation from the previous private round of financing, but much better than bankruptcy. It was not at all clear that we would be successful at the offering. The stock market was crashing and the public market investors were visibly distressed. At the end of the preparation process and after the bank and a sign off, our director of finance, Scott Cooper, received a call from the banker at the Morgan Stanley banker. Scott, did you know that 27 million of your cash is restricted and tied up in the real estate commitments? Scott, yes, of course, banker. So you have just over 3 weeks worth of cash before you go bankrupt. Scott, yes. Scott then replied the conversation to me saying, can you believe underwrote the deal and didn't notice that the case was restricted until now. We gave them all the documents right before we were to leave from the IPO roadshow. I called an all company meeting to share two pieces of news. First, we were going public, or at least we are going to try to go public. Second, the company had fallen so far value that we could have to reverse split the stock 2 for 1. I thought the first part would go okay. Means the first part was we are going to public. That the reverse split the stock for 2 for 1. I thought the first part would be okay, but I was worried about how second piece of the news would be received. We had to reverse split the stock to get the price per share high enough to go public. In theory, a reverse split shouldn't matter at all. Each employee owned a certain percentage of the company. The company had a total number of shares of stock. Multiply the total number of shares by the percentage and you get the employee's share number. The company had total number of share of stock. The company had a total number of share of stock. Multiply the total number of share by the percentage and you get the employee's share number. Cut the number of shares in the half while employees would have half the number of shares. They would still own the exact same percentage of the company. Nothing changed. Oh, but it did. As we grow from 0 to 600 employees in the less than 18 months, the stage was set for hyperbole and momentum. Some overly excited managers oversold the dreams. They spoke only in the term of share rather than in term of percentage and spun stories of the potential $100 per share stock price. Employees then calculated their fantasy price per share and figured out how much money they would make. I was aware that this was going on, but I was never thought we would be reverse split the stock, so I never worried about it. Like many other things that I screwed up during that period, I should have worried. My wife Felicia, let's have a water. My wife Felicia came to the all company meeting as she always did. This time her parents were in town, so they came to the meeting. The meeting did not go well. People did not realize how close to the edge we were. So the IPO of so the news of the IPO didn't make anyone happy. The news of the reverse split made them even less happy. In fact, it infuriated them. I had literally cut their fantasy number in the half, and they were not pleased about it. Nobody said harsh thing directly to me. My in-laws, however, heard everything, and as my father-in-law put it, it wasn't nothing nice. My mother-in-law Loretta asked my wife, "Why does everybody hate them so much?" Felicia, who was normally the most electric outgoing person in the room, was just recovering from the hernia surgery, so she wasn't her normal bubbly self. She she was discouraged. My in-law, my bubbly self, she was discouraged. My in-law were depressed and the employees were pissed. I had no idea if I would be able to raise the money. What a way to start a roadshow, an event that usually the cause of a bit more funfair. And the roadshow was brutal. The stock market crashed daily and the technology stock were to blame. The investors looked like they would came out of the torture chamber. When we arrived, one mutual fund manager looked right at the Mark and me and asked, why are you here? Do you have any idea what's going on in the world?" I thought that there was no way we would be able to raise the money. We were going to go bankrupt for sure. I would not sleep more than 2 hours total during that entire 3 week trip. 3 days into the tour, I received a call from father-in-law. John Bailey had been through a lot in his 71 years. As a boy, his father was murdered in Texas. In order to survive, he had his mother moved in with an unkind man and his 9 children. Their John was abused, made stayed and the barn with the animals, while the other children ate his dinner. Eventually, John and his 3 days tour, I received a call from my father-in-law. John Willie through a lot in his had been through a lot in his 71 years. As a boy, his father was murdered in Texas. In order to survive, he had his mother moved in with an unkind man and his 9 children. There, John was abused, made to stay with the barn with the animals while other children ate his dinner. Eventually, John and his mother left that cruelty by the walking for the 3 days down a dirt road carrying everything they had on. John would recall that journey in the great detail. His entire life as a young man before finishing his higher school education, left home to fight in the Korean War so that he could support his mother. As a young father of the five, he took every job imaginable to support his family, including unloading banana boats and working to build Alaskan pipeline. He tragically saw two of his children die before he reached at the age of 60. He had the hard life he had was used to bad news. John Willie had not called for me any uncasual reasons. If he called, it was serious, possibly even deadly serious. Ben, hello. John, Ben, the officer said not to bother you, but I just want to let you know that Felicia stopped breathing. Oh my God. But she's not going to die. Ben, not going to die. What happened? I could not believe it. I had been so focused on the work that I had lost focus of the only thing that really mattered to me. Once again, I neglected to worry about the one thing that I should have been worried about. When what happened, John? Uh, they gave her some medicine and she had allergic reaction and she stopped breathing, but she's okay now. When John, yesterday. When what? Why did you tell me? Why didn't you tell me, John? I know that you are busy and that you are really in the trouble at the work because of the meeting and that I went to. When should I come here, John? No, oh no. Take care of her. You just take care of what you need to do. I just completely stunned. I started to sweating so hard that I had to change my clothes right after the call. I had no idea what to do. If I returned to home, the company would surely go bankrupt, and if I stayed, how could I stay? How could I stay? I called back and had him put Felicia on the phone. When, if you need me, I will come home. Felicia, no, get the IPO done. There is no tomorrow for you and the company. I will be fine. I stumbled through the rest of the road so completely discombobulated. One day I wore a mismatched suit jacket and suit pants, which Mark pointed out to me midway through the meeting. I had no idea where I was half the time during the 3 week we were on the road. Comparable companies in our markets lost half of their values, which meant that our $10 share price was roughly double the current benchmark. The bankers recommended that the lower the price of the offering to the $6 a share in order to reflect this new reality, but they gave us no assurance that the deal would actually get done. Then the day before the offering, Yahoo, the lighthouse company of the internet boom, announced Tim Google, its CEO, was stepping down. We had hit the nadir of the dot-com crash and the LoudCloud offering finally called at $6 a share, and we raised 162 million. But there was no celebration and no party. Neither Goldman Sachs nor Morgan Stanley, the two banks that took us public, even offered us the traditional closing dinner. It may have been the least celebratory IPO in the history, but Felicia was feeling better and we had pulled it off. In a brief moment of the light-heartedness on the plane ride home, I turned into Scott Cooper, my director of the finance, and said, "We did it." He replied, "Yeah, but we are still fucked." Year later, in the 2012, after the Yahoo fired its CEO Scott Thompson, Felicia must should bring back to Google. I replied, "Tim Google, how do you even know who Tim Google is? Do you know even who Tim Google is?" See, that relieved the conversation. We would had the 11 years earlier. It went something like this: when we are fucked. Felicia, what do you mean? What happened when Yahoo fired Google? It's over. The whole thing is over. Felicia, who is Google, Ben? He was the CEO of Yahoo. We were fucked. I am going to have shut down the company down. Phil say, are you sure? When didn't you hear me? They fired Google. We were fucked. So she had never seen me that depressed before, and she never forgot it. For the most CEO, the night before their public offering is the highlight. For me, it was a highlight of the depression. If you are going to eat shit, don't nibble during the road show. As a way to, if you are going to eat shit, don't nibble during the road show. As a way to break the tension, Mark would say, remember when things are always darkest before they completely black. Oh my god. Things are always the darkest before they get completely black. Let me write it down. Things are always darkest before it they go completely before he was joking. But as we entered our first quarter of the public company, those words seemed precise. Customer continued to churn, the macroeconomic environment worsened, and our sales prospect declined. As we got closer to our first earning call with investors, I conducted through review to the make sure that we were still on the track to meet our guidance. The good news was that we would meet our forecast for the quarter. The bad news, there was a little chance that we could meet our forecast for the year. Typically, investors expect that the companies will refrain from going public if they can't hit at least their first year forecast. These were exceptional times, but resetting guidance on the very first earning call was still a very bad thing to do. I was discussed where I reset guidance to investors. We were faced with a tough choice. Should we try to minimize the initial damage by taking down the number as little as possible, or should we minimize the risk of another reset? If we reduce the number by a lot, the stock might fall apart. And the other hand, if you didn't lower it enough, it might have a reset again, which could cost us all the credibility we had left. My controller Dave Conte raised his hand, and with that, with what we would be the definitive advice, no matter what we say, we are going to get killed. As soon as we reset guidance, we will have no credibility with the investors, so we might as well take all the pain now, because nobody will believe any positivity in the forecast anyway. If you are going to eat seed, don't nibble. If you are going to eat seed, let me write it. If you are going to eat seed, so we reset guidance for the year, slashed our original forecast of the 75 million in the project revenue to the 55 million. Resetting revenue guidance also means resetting expense guidance, and that means laying people off. We would be the darling of the startup world, and now I had to send home 50% of our employees. It was the clearest indication yet that I was failing my investors, failing my employees, and failing myself. Following the reset, Goldman Sachs and the Morgan Stanley, the investment banks that had taken us public, both dropped research coverage, meaning their analysts would no longer follow the company progress on the behalf of their clients. This was a huge slap on the face of a massive reneging of the promise. they made when they were pitching us, but the time were tough all around, and we had no resource with a vote of no confidence from our bank and a lower revenue forecast. The stock price plummeted from the $6 a share to the $2 despite of the mammoth negative momentum. We soldiered on and we put it together a fairly stronger quarter in the third quarter of 2001. Then on the September 11, the terrorists hijacked four jet lines flying, two in the World Trade Center and another in the Pentagon. And in the end of throwing the whole world into chaos, it was turned out that our largest deal that quarter was the British government. It represented one third of our bookings, and we would miss the quarter targets badly without it. Our champion on the deal called to inform us that Prime Minister Tony Blair had redirected that the funds of our deal to the war chest. Literally, by some miracle, our self-directed convinced one of the Tommy Blair's staffers to get the money back. So we got the deal and made the quarter. Nonetheless, the closure call was sign to me that the entire operation was far too fragile. I got another sign when our largest competitor, Exodius, filed for the bankruptcy on the September 26th. It was the truly incredible bankruptcy in that the company had been valued at the 50 billion, a little more than a year earlier. It was also remarkable because Exodius had raised 800 million on a fully funded plan just 9 months earlier. And Exodius executive later joked to me when we drove off the cliff we left two skid marks. When we drove off the cliff, we left no skid marks. When we left no skid mark. If Exodius could lose 50 billions in the market capitalization and 800 millions in the cash that fast, I needed to backup plan. In my first attempt at a plan B, we evaluated requiring data return a company like ours that focused more on Windows application than Unix application as we did. We studied the deal for weeks, modeling that what we two companies might look like together, figuring out product offering and cost synergies. My CFO at the time was extremely excited about the deal since we would make use of his favorite skill set, cost cutting. Towards the end of the process, I took 2 days vacations to Ashland, Oregon. Almost as soon as I arrived, I received the urgent call from the John O'Farrell, who was in charge of the corporate and business development. John, Ben, sorry to disturb you on the vacation, but we had a meeting on the data return deal, and I don't think that we should do it. Well, why not? John, quite frankly, our business is in the trouble and their business is in the trouble, and putting them together will just double trouble. When I was thinking that exact same thing, in fact, looking at data returns business made it crystal clear to me that Loud Cloud would probably not end well. Something are much easier to see in other than in yourself. Looking at the data return, I could see Loud Cloud's future, and it was not a pretty. I had a great deal of trouble sleeping as I thought about our fate. I tried to make myself feel better by asking, what's the worst thing that could happen? The answer was always come back the same. Well, we will go bankrupt. I will lose some everybody's money, including my mother's. I will have to lay off all the people who have been working so hard in a very bad economy. All of the customers who trusted me will be screwed, and my reputation will be ruined. Funny, asking that question never made me feel any better. Then one day I asked myself a different question. What would I do if we went bankrupt? What would I do if we went bankrupt? The answer that I came up with the surprise me. I would buy our software of software which returned in the loud cloud out of the bankruptcy and start a software company. Opsware was the software that we had written to automate all the tasks of the running cloud right now provisioning servers and networking equipment, developing applications, recovering the environments in the case of disaster, and so forth. Then I asked myself another question. So there is a way to do that without going bankrupt. I ran through the different scenarios in my mind where we might move into the software business and exit the cloud business. In each scenario, step one was the separating Opsware from the loud cloud. Opsware had been written to run only in the loud cloud and had many constraints that prevented it from being a product that would work in any environment. I asked my co-founder and CTO, Tim Hobbs, how long it would take to separate Opsware from the loud cloud. How long it take? He said about a month, about 9 months, which would prove to be quite optimistic. I immediately assigned a team of 10 engineers to start the process in the project we call Oxide. In that point, our business was still a cloud business, and I gave no indication to the rest of the staff that I might have other ideas. Doing so would have instantly doomed the only business we were in, as everyone would want to work in the future and not the past. I said the Oxide was simply another product line. This statement deeply worried two of my employees had graduated from the Stanford Business School. They scheduled an appointment and presented me with a slide deck detailing why my decision to start Oxide was quite exotic.